Okay, guys, so I was at a meeting last night in the Shankill. Okay, so some of the Shankill residents had asked some of the councillors to come along with some of the PSNI to discuss what is actually happening on the Shankill Road at the minute, because there's a lot of concerned parents. So I took some notes and I thought, let's go through my notes today. First off, oh my goodness, so proud of the Shankill Road guys, right? There was well over 100 people in the room. Absolutely amazing to see so many people out. Also a bit sad that there is so many concerned people around, because it shows what people are seeing on the street, right? These are just normal people living in the Shankill that have these concerns, that their concerns are so strong that they wanted to pull this meeting together. So great turnout. I thought fabulous turnout. No seats left. A lot of people standing up around the sides of the room. So really, really great to see. So one of the guys started it off. I think he was a counsellor. I'm not sure because they didn't have the mic working. Sometimes we could barely hear him. But now, first off, he started by giving people, in my mind, it was a bit of a lecture to tell us all how to behave, right? And I get that these meetings need to be conducted in a certain way to hear other people, but I just didn't think it was a great way to start the meeting by giving people a lecture and telling them how to behave, telling them no cursing. It's more. It felt like only speak when you're spoken to. Now you didn't say those words. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I just think these councillors standing, they were all up at a table. I just think it wasn't a great way to start a meeting by giving people a lecture, telling them how to behave, as if, we're up here, we know how to behave, and we need to tell you all how to behave. People's emotions are raw. People are getting to the stage where they're crying out for help from our government bodies, right? And to start a meeting off giving a bit of a lecture, I didn't think was ideal. But you know what? It was great they were there. He then started to go down the route of now I thought this meeting was about this one particular cause, and obviously it's not. It's greater than that. So sort of getting, in my mind, a little bit of an excuse in there. Now apparently I did hear that this particular boy was called up sort of last minute. But, it's their job to be prepared about these things. So I sort of felt that was getting excuses in there straight away. So it took a wee while to more or less just do that. Get excuses in and tell us how to behave, right? I just didn't think that was ideal. I think that could have been dealt with better, right? Then one of the policemen started to speak, and again, there was excuses in there. They had also said that they were here to talk about one particular incident, but that they couldn't talk about it, right? So it was like, yeah, we're here to talk about this incident, but we can't actually talk about it. And then sort of more excuses in my eyes again. More excuses in my eyes, saying we don't have resources, we can't talk about this, we have our own problems within the community that we can't deal with, and, making it sound like a more generalized problem instead of actually really talking about what they knew fine rightly people wanted to talk about, which is this mass illegal immigration, right? Because a lot of the incidences that the concerned parents had was from these unvetted men, right, that are causing these incidences. So again, the police, and in fairness to one of the police guys, he did say, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we don't have any resources, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, we know that. But at the same time, he did have 4 police officers there. 2 that sat and said nothing the whole time. I never heard them say anything. He was the only one that done the talk, and there was a lady there, and in fairness, I could see her taking notes, so maybe that's what she was there for. But it just seemed a little bit funny to me that you're saying you've no resources, yet you can employ and pay probably a high salary for 2 police officers to sit there and do absolutely nothing. And to be honest, they sat there as if they didn't want to be there, with their faces. It was like, yeah, I don't even think these guys want to be here. But you can't complain about resources whenever you've two people there sitting doing nothing. So I thought that could have been managed better. Maybe those two police officers could have been out patrolling the streets. Because some of the concerned parents did bring up the fact that they don't see many police officers around. And we understand that the police could do with more resources, right? We get that and we understand that. But I think it's just that we're sick of these excuses all the time, So look, I just felt, my personal opinion, I just felt that could have been dealt with a little bit differently. Now, a lot of people there were bringing up, like we say, the illegal immigration. And we were more or less told last night that it's nothing to do with Northern Ireland. That the politicians in Northern Ireland can't really do anything about it, and that it's a Westminster problem. So, it's, well, like, I know you can tell us all that, but are you over at Westminster? And these politicians over at Westminster raising these concerns then? You can't just come and tell us, we can't do anything. It's not our problem. This is our country and we want to be safe in our country. A lot of the ones from the Shankill, they can't even go out and about. They can't put the kids out. There's people hiding in bushes and this and that and the rest of it. And it's becoming an unsafe community. And why it's concerning for us that maybe aren't from the Shankill is that the Shankill's very close to Belfast. So a lot of these people could make their way in. A lot of these people that are dangerous could make their way into Belfast. So, it really does affect all of us because that's our, that's our city, right? So the Shankill is quite important and hence why we were there. Now, another thing that I noticed was that the councillors in the PSNI seem to call these illegal immigrants newcomers. And I just think that's not really a great terminology. That's them softening that terminology. Oh, they're just newcomers. They're just newcomers. To sort of make us all believe, this is what we have to be careful about. We have to be careful about the words that they use to make us all think that, they're just all these wee nice newcomers. Well, no, not all of them. Not all of them, right? Some of them, I'm sure, but not all these men coming in droves, right? Some of them come from, countries that are dangerous countries, and that's their reality day to day, right? So that's what their, what's the word I'm looking for? I talking about other people getting better words, I need to do it. They're used to that life. They're used to that kind of life. They're desensitized to living life in more dangerous environments, and then they're bringing that over here, right? And just because they come over on a boat or they all of a sudden land in one of our two wee islands here doesn't automatically take that away from them, okay? So I didn't like that term newcomer that they were trying to use. I didn't like that part at all. So a lot of the times they were asking, the concerned parents were asking questions when they eventually got the mic sorted. Although still at the back, a lot of people couldn't hear the guy from the PSNI because he sat down. At least the councillor stood up so that we could, hear him more. But a lot of the time that there was difficult questions asked, they went on to the next person and went, right, what's the next question? And, we'd all been told at the start, no shouting, but we sort of went, hold on, you need to answer that before you move on to the next question, right? So I really feel like they could have answered the questions better. I mean, there was a nice councillor there, a woman, I think she was a councillor, and, she was nice. She said that she'd speak to some of the concerned parents afterwards about certain in particular incidences, so she done all right. One of the councillors didn't speak. Like I say, they didn't answer the questions. When they were tough questions, they wouldn't answer them. Also, people get sort of told off about so a particular incident. They says you didn't report it through and 999, you put it through a counsellor, you need to report it through that way, and people are going, yeah, but half the time I can't get through, or if you phone 101, there's not enough availability, or you have to go through these certain, press 1 for this, and we just felt like we wanted We want that connection with the people that are supposed to be looking after us, our PSNI. And we just would have, rather than people having to go online, somebody mentioned, but what about if it's an elderly person and they don't know how to do that, or something's happened to them and they need help straight away. So I just felt that the conversation could have been a bit, they could have answered better and not avoided the questions. One girl actually stood up and said, well, what can we do for our safety? Like, what would you think that we could do for our safety when we're out and about? And he said phone 999 if something happens, but it's too late by then, right? It's too late. So yeah, like, it was great to see so many people there. And for these, I would encourage everybody to start getting these meetings set up within their own local communities. Contact your local councillor, contact your local PSNI, and get these meetings set up all around Northern Ireland where you have these concerns. Because yes, last night I don't believe that we got any firm answers, or I don't think what they give us was helpful, but I will always look for the positive, and what I thought was really positive was that so many people showed up and putting pressure on the PSNI and the councillors to stand up and do something about the massive issue that this country faces. I mean, we do, and if you can't see that at the minute, I would ask you to do a little bit more research, because trust me, in a few years' time, a lot of these areas are unrecognisable as it is, and it's only going to get worse. So he then also had left pieces of paper on the tables and had asked people to fill in their concerns, and the concerned parents done that. And then they were handed in at the end. Now, I sort of left just before the end. Everybody got up and walked out. A lot of people did. A lot of people got up and walked out because they didn't feel like it had really achieved anything, because we weren't really getting straight answers. So he said that anybody that filled in the bit of paper, that they were going to look at those concerns and then they were going to set up another meeting to answer those concerns. My issue with that is that we all don't know every concern that was written down, so we don't know if they're going to get back to every concern. So to me, what they should have done is they should have pulled the questions more publicly and got a set of 10 questions maybe that everybody was feeling, showed us all that these are the 10 questions, these are the 10 concerns, and so that then we know what we're waiting on the reply to. But let's face it, I mean, most people are worried about the mass illegal immigration, right? And that was the main concern. So listen, we have to give these guys their chance, I guess, to come back and to set up another meeting and have answers to these questions. But I believe that they should have wrote down what was going on, and maybe somebody did take notes, but I think it should have been more transparent of what questions they were going away with, so that we knew what questions we were expecting the answer to, rather than everybody writing it down and now we don't know. They'll come back and they'll answer the questions that they want to answer, the easier ones. And look, guys, I'm not fully getting at our politicians or our PSNI here at all. We know that it's tough what they're doing, okay? But at the same time, didn't they get into that job because they care about their communities, they love their communities? So telling us off at the start and not really answering our questions and saying that they're completely powerless. Like, if they're completely powerless and it's happening in Westminster, then not good, are they? They also kept coming back to, we've had problems in our communities for years and years and years. Yet tell us something we don't know. We know that. We know that we're not all perfect. We never said that we are all perfect. So what we're saying is that we want our problems in our country fixed first before we start helping the rest of the world. And I said that to the guy and to the PSNI. I says, the PSNI are saying that they've no resources. Yous are saying that there's other problems within the communities that you're trying to sort. Well, what makes you think, if you have little resources and you can't solve the problems that are already happening in the community, what makes you think that yous are going to be able to help more everybody else that's coming in, right? If you can't help your own, you can't help everybody else. But of course that was wasn't really answered, although I did shout it out, right? So yeah, because it was getting a little bit frustrating, I'll not lie. but it really wasn't answered. So hopefully they take it on board, and hopefully they do listen, and they go into their own council meetings or MLA meetings or whatever it is, and they really start to discuss these concerns of the parents. They definitely controlled people asking questions, and they said, right, that's enough of that, get it written down. And to me it should have been more of an open dialogue, that rather than writing it all down. Now there was one particular incident, and that the police officer did give us more detail on. It was an incident that has been solved, and he was, he kindly enough said, look, we got this guy with I think it was assault exposure. I think this guy had some sort of sexual act in front of a child. So, they did get somebody, and that's a positive. We really, really, really do need to take this forward positively. I'm just sharing my thoughts. I know I've maybe said a few negative things here, but it's just my thoughts on how it could have been better, right? It's how it could have been better. But, I really do hope these people are still within their hearts trying to do the right thing for their communities. I'm trying to think, was there anything? Oh, we got another wee telling off halfway through on how to behave. They told us that there's an upgrade system on the 101. So they're spending money on upgrading their wee phone calls, right? I don't know, that's exactly where we would want the money spent. Maybe there's something else they could be doing. TUV was there. The TUV guy was great, and what he said was exactly what the concerned parents were saying. He really, really did. My tiny little bit of thing that came to my mind about that is more or less he just repeated, but in more political language, let's say. But he just more or less repeated what the concerned parents had said in his political terminology. So my thought was, if I'm honest with you, is he just here chasing for votes, right? But he does have the same concerns, so fair dues to him there. He just didn't provide any answers, right? He didn't provide any answers. He just repeated, right? But credit where credit's due, So they also said that it's not that these illegal immigrants aren't getting housing from the housing executive, that it's actually a company, a housing group. Mars I wrote down, but I don't know if MERS, maybe. No, my spelling's probably not great. So maybe that company needs to be taking some sort of accountability. I'm not sure. I need to look a bit more into that now. So, this is just my notes from last night. They also said that if we have any concerns about how the police are dealing with things, that we can contact the police ombudsman. In my eyes, they all work for the same people, right? They all work. Maybe the police ombudsman does some good work. I don't know, but they all work for the same people. Now, the TUV did say something that nobody else had said, and he had mentioned about the Belfast agenda. So that's maybe something to look into, guys. The Belfast agenda states that there will be there'll be 66k more immigrants coming in by 2035. Okay, that's a lot for our wee island. A lot. So, like I said, it was good. It was nice to see them talking about that, but it felt like he was just, chasing folks. That's how I felt. I'm not saying everybody felt like that. So all in all, great to see so many people there. That's just a few of my thoughts. I don't want to stay too long on the negative. Get yourself a meetings, get yourself set up in your own wee communities, and let's really start showing our PSNI and our councillors that we're not backing down. We want the safety of our women and children, and we want the culture to remain in our countries, in our towns, in our villages, in our communities. And let's really take this positively, but also not letting them away with not answering the questions that we're actually asking, and sort of putting it on to Westminster. So my question to those politicians in this country that are blaming Westminster, I hear you, but are you over there sitting in Westminster telling them the views of the Northern Ireland people? Thank you so much, guys.